Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call this meeting to order. Article 26, Land Use Change Tax. By petition, shall the town vote to place 100% of the revenues of the future payments collected from the Land Use Change Tax into the Conservation Fund, according to RSA 36A53, as authorized under the provisions of RSA 79A:25-2. Said monies to be used for the acquisition of conservation land, conservation easements, development rights, and the costs associated therewith. Not recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-1. There is a zero tax impact. I'll recognize petitioner Mr. Gagnon to present warrant Article 26.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And today I come to you as a resident, a conservationist, not as a selectman, just to clarify that. So, as the moderator has spoken, he has read the article which you see in front of you. My presentation today is going to speak to one of the biggest misconceptions regarding the current use program and the land use change tax associated with it. Next slide, please. To understand how we utilize and distribute current use change tax income, we first must understand the intent of the current use law. New Hampshire Governor John Lynch said, "In New Hampshire, we know that our high quality of life depends on our breathtaking landscape, traditional uses." That is why in 1973, the New Hampshire General Court created the current use law to encourage the preservation of undeveloped land and forest lands. Next slide, please. The current use program is not a tax break. I repeat, the current use program is not a tax break. The current use program is a mechanism for taxing land based on its usable value. Based on that, we can conclude that the town has not lost any taxable revenues in which should be refunded to the general fund. On the contrary, it can be argued that this program increases the town's valuation and subsequent property tax revenues during the years the open spaces are kept in their natural state. By having more farm and forest land in town, home values are increased due to the demand to live in privacy. Next slide, please. What is land use change tax? Land use change tax is when land, which was once in the current use system, is sold for development and triggers a 10% tax on the buildable value. Next slide, please. So far, we have declared that the current use program is designed to encourage the preservation of farm and forest lands. The current use program is not a tax break that needs to be refunded upon cancellation of the land in the program. And thirdly, open spaces such as farmland, forest land, increases the town's valuation due to the demand to live around beautiful natural environments. Thus, in conclusion, 100% of these fees associated with the land use change tax should go directly to purchasing and protecting more open spaces via the Conservation Commission Fund. This supports the overall intent of the program and furthers the financial benefits to our state from protecting farm and forest land. Next slide, please. It should be noted that even if this article were to pass and we were to put 100% of the land use change tax into the Conservation Fund, this is only a 10% mitigatory effort towards protecting open space. Put differently, every 10 parcels of land that are taken out of the current use program for development will only fund one similar sized parcel under conservation protections. And I'd kind of like to finish, excuse me. Many people voted for me as a selectman because they know what I stand for, and this is one of them. So thank you. And to speak to a couple questions that were brought up, and to my fellow selectmen, Selectman Roy, who I highly respect, she made some good points, but I've actually prepared a statement for that. So some people may say that sending land use change tax revenues to the general fund helps lower the tax burden. Although this may hold some truth, let's look at it in more detail. The general fund can be used for things like fire trucks or maybe town infrastructure and so forth, mostly depreciating assets. So we would be taking tax revenues from a depleting asset, they're not making any more land, and they're spending it on depreciating expenses. This is not a sustainable financial decision. If we spend all the incoming land use change tax to purchase and protect new conservation land, we not only gain appreciating assets, but we increase the value of the town, which attracts young families and helps keep our drinking water safe and retain some of the character this town has left. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I was also on the Conservation Commission for 12 years in the past, and the two items that I would like to point out, I think Mr. Gagnon just stated them, but the land use change tax is a one-time tax. It occurs when the property comes out of open space and becomes buildable. So giving 100% to the Conservation Commission, actually, it's one time. The town, on the other hand, when the land is built, increases its tax roll. So it gets tax from the buildable land out into infinity. Of course, it gets expenses out into infinity too, but it does get the future tax. So I think taking this, the land use change tax, one-time event, giving it to the Conservation Commission is a very worthwhile goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further? Go ahead.
Thank you. 2 points, just wanted to legitimately question. I understand, we have to be fiscally responsible in a default year especially, but earlier in the deliberative session, we talked about an unassigned fund. We have $6 million sitting in it. Although I agree default budget is dire, but with a $6 million backup, are we truly in a dire circumstance? And my second point is anybody that's gone shopping for land, boy, they're not giving it away. $747,000 in our current fund gets spent up pretty quick. I mean, there's under 10 acres going for over $400,000. So land deals are very complicated. I also served on the Conservation Commission. They come up sometimes in a moment's notice, and the commission has to make a decision. Can we really afford to go after something? It's great, but we only have, $1 million or $800,000 or $700,000. Should we really go for this? What's the likelihood we're even going to get it? So the more buying power you can have in the account makes it much easier for the commission to make decisions on land deals, especially when they have maybe a couple different options on the table and they have to give up one. So there's a lot to it. So the more you can kind of give them, if you're serious about saving land, the better the chances are to secure a deal. And this town, not for nothing, has for the past several years shown majority that we want to back efforts to save land. That's what the constituents are voting, and we need our leaders to hear that. In some years, over 70% of our town's voters have said, yes, save that land. So we gotta represent what the voters are voting, not what we personally might think. So that's how I'll leave it. Thank you very much for taking
Thank you. Mr. Murray?